Horror Lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, and I am your Wednesday night host here at BodyBags. It is week 335. Man, it is theme week finally. An Unearthed Films week. And I'll be taking a look at a film by Paulin from '04 entitled Bone Sickness. I don't know how many of you out there have seen this, but man, this is definitely a worthy watch, man. It is worth the watch for this film. This film, of course, stars him, right? In the movie, just real quick, movie basically centers itself on just a handful of characters. A couple, Alex and Kristen. Alex is bedridden. He's got this degenerative bone disease that seems to be no cure. His girl, Kristen, and their friend Thomas Granger, and his girl, who plays just a little bit of a role. But really, the movie really does, as far as those characters, those three, and there's an Inspector Seacrest that kind of pokes his head here and there trying to figure out what's going on with all these murders that seem to be happening. But before I get into the story in here, this movie is from '04, and he's got a line of movies. I mean, Fetus, Blood Pigs, Cryptoplasm. I mean, there's just a few. He's a New England man. He may be a bit of a Lovecraft man, I think. There's just vibes from his movie that seem to scream Lovecraft, as well as Fulci and Romero and even Carpenter. I kept thinking about Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things was a movie that kept coming to the forefront of my mind as I was watching this. But really, really stunning. He's a makeup or a student. He was a makeup artist, but he was... what am I trying to say? He learned under the great Dick Smith, of course known for Arsenic and Old Lace, but coming up to Exorcist, Scanners, the great Dick Smith. Anyone who grew up reading Fangoria magazine as a kid knew Dick Smith's name. And so Brian Paulin was a student of his. And so that's pretty cool. But this movie's really interesting. It is an Unearthed Films. Unearthed Films, of course, was founded back in 2002, and it's both a production company now, but a U.S. distribution company that really prides itself on exploitation films, mostly from East Asia. Mostly the Guinea Pig series, probably, I think, which I haven't seen any of. But I think it began as a distribution company, and then I think since 2013 maybe, it's become a production company. And so that's interesting. So Unearthed Films is an interesting, probably small budget distribution / production company. But anyways, Brian Paulin, who's got, I think, a few films through there, perhaps. Bone Sickness, one of them. And so New England guy, Lovecraft guy, perhaps. But man, this movie. So... all right, I've been delaying the obvious story. It's a pretty simple story. It's definitely constrained, but not detrimentally by. I think it only costs under $4,000. But man, there are times at this movie that's mind-boggling to consider what they created. Probably I'm not sure how long it took to make the film, but I know he basically did some of it right out of his own garage, which is just absolutely amazing. Some of the set pieces, I'm just thinking of the cemetery scenes, the exterior shots, some of which the end, which I cannot forget, is the most gratifying scene for me personally. But a lot of influences here. I kept thinking of Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I kept thinking of Dawn of the Dead, but mostly Fulci's Zombie, I think. Maybe Burial Ground, those kind of zombies, right? But anyway, so the story, basically, Alex has got a degenerative bone disease, and for all intents and purposes, there's no cure. No one can help him anymore. He's at the end of his road, and his girl, Kristen, she has nowhere to turn. She does not know what to do anymore for him. He's basically just dying. And her friend Thomas, who probably has some ulterior motives going on, even though he's hooked up with his own girl who's never home, because I think she's an airline stewardess maybe. And but she's never home, and so he's really got his eyes on Alex's girl. But he seems to be like the good guy here, and he's trying to feed this alternative medicine mixture thing. Basically, he's robbing the local graveyard for bones and stuff. He's taking from bodies and some things even from the hospital, I think, where he works, where he's able to retrieve some of the stuff. And he's grinding it into small pieces into red meat, and I don't know, he's just concocting this almost like a weird sort of, well, you would think maybe voodoo type sort of mixture to help Alex, when in fact maybe the opposite was intended. He's, like I said, really got his eyes on his girl, so you're not really sure completely, absolutely, but it seems as though Thomas may really be the antagonist here, while Alex, unfortunately, is the protagonist who really can't do much for himself until towards the end. But even that will be undone by much greater things that have been opened up. Well, because of Thomas's meddling, this is the Lovecraft part. Because of his meddling into the graveyard and disturbing those at rest, and we keep getting shots, you know, you'll be one scene and with some of the main characters and things are sort of developing, although at kind of a slow pace. And then suddenly, boom, you're back in the cemetery. But it's to create this vibe, I think, that the cemetery is waking up. It's not happy what Thomas has been up to. And it doesn't take long for the zombies to actually start coming, Fulci-esque, right up out of the ground. First, they start attacking people right there in the cemetery, then maybe perhaps around the surrounding area. And then, as a result of Thomas's and Kristen implicating herself into this, it's never really shown whether she has anything. Although there is one scene, I shouldn't say that. There is one scene I think I remember where she actually does call Thomas. And so you almost wonder if there isn't something mutual going on there, which is really disheartening for Alex, who's basically just dying in probably his last days. Although without this alternative medicine, who knows how long he actually does live, but he's not in good shape is the point here, right? So really what you have here is a sort of a Lovecraftian, I think, apocalyptic Pandora's box thing where I'm just flying off the top of my head. It just seems like Thomas, man, is delving into things he ought not to be and unwittingly just opens up Pandora's box, which is the cemetery, which will be the the source, the beginning, the genesis of the end of everything. And man, the special effects, let me just say this for a minute, man, those zombies and some of the gore effects, there's everything from reanimation to a scene that was reminiscent of Reanimator, I think. There's full body burns, or maybe not full body, but there's partial body burns. Man, I'm just telling you, man, this thing, man, is just fully loaded with the kitchen sink and the cupboards and everything else, man, chock full into this movie. And it is low budget, but man, you got to appreciate, man, here is a guy who has a real heart. And like I said, the movie, the scope is even beyond its own self. You get to the end, and you're left with this sort of apocalyptic, in the most creative way I think he could have. He just leaves you in the last closing moments. It's not really to give. I mean, I don't know if you really can give a lot away with a movie like this, but I have to talk about it because, I mean, this is what does it for me, man. It's the clinching end. It's the last framing shot. It's freaking, it's in the middle of the winter, and you got somebody transmitting over radio, trying to ascertain whether there's anyone else alive or not. And off in the distance, the blustery snow appears to be one zombie who's just sort of walking slowly, meandering through the snow, and you just get this very heavy apocalyptic feel that everyone's basically dead in this city, and who knows how far out it has spread. And it has just a, man, you know what, it begs, I was telling somebody the other night, I was thinking, where Fulci's movie, the original Zombie, ends off with the zombies entering New York, would be a perfect spot, man, for somebody like Brian Paulin, man. If you could get somebody with a decent amount of money, and if he were willing, man, I would love to see him be able to be put in a place where he could create the greatest amount, the greatest nodding, tipping of the hat, whatever, to Lucio Fulci by being allowed to actually direct a natural sequel that picks up in the closing moments as the zombies are walking across the bridge into the city. Man, if he could be in charge of such a project, but on a really, I mean, who knows, man? Maybe he's the newest Romero. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows? I would never just automatically make that connection or jump. And it's just what you see, what he does on such a small scale that begs the question, what could he do on such a large scale? And I love the fact that we see a zombie just wandering, meandering out in the blustering snow, creating this really awesome apocalyptic vibe of the end of the world, a Carpenter-esque sort of end of the world type last framing shot. And man, I'm telling you, man, this movie is a trip and a half. And so I don't know. I don't know how much I want to go. I'm not sure where I'm at in time right now, but I mean, it is definitely worthy to pick up. And just to get a sense of someone who, it's nice. I mean, we had We Are Still Here, and I mean, there's been times when we've seen people who have created movies as love letters to Fulci and whatnot on a much larger scale than this. But man, I would love to see Brian Paulin really get a shot at some point down the road. If he is, I mean, he may not even be the kind of guy who would even want that kind of chance. But anyways, it's an interesting film. It's got some real Lovecraft vibes, I think. It's got some interesting influences. It is low budget, it is constrained. A lot of scenes are shot just, probably right there in around his house, where his house is, out of his garage or other places. But man, what he does for the amount of money, I mean, is simply absolutely amazing. The zombie makeup effects alone are pretty outstanding. Some of the best, I think, maybe some of the best I might have ever seen, notwithstanding the works of Fulci, perhaps Burial Ground, perhaps Manchester Morgue. I think is the movie I'm thinking of, The Murders of the Manchester Morgue, something like that. I mean, notwithstanding, obviously, great accomplishments that have been had. But man, for what he has and for what he does and for the scope that seems to be there, at least in the closing shots, man, I just, wow. I was pretty, I was pretty impressed. So anyways, week 335, it's theme week, it's Unearthed Films, man. I am so scoped to be checking out the reviews all week long to see what everyone has been doing, just to kind of get a better idea myself of what's out there in terms of Unearthed Films, the movies that they have distributed, produced, gotten out. So anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying this. Hit the like button, leave a comment, something I said, maybe perhaps if you've seen the movie. Let me know if you want to see the movie, questions, or maybe just want me to further comment on something particular. But anyways, as always, man, just enjoy the week, man. Hope the rest of your work week, we're at the middle of things right now. Hope the rest of it goes well for y'all. And as always, man, football season or not, we go. And with Go Bills.